Welcome in, everybody. First edition of the Warchant Report powered by Cummins of the month of Brocktober. Hope you're all are celebrating. Hope you're also going to take a minute out of your day and go over to Instagram and follow Cummins Lifestyle. It's all one word. Frankly, we wouldn't be doing this show if it wasn't for the good folks at Cummins. So go show your appreciation for them for keeping us motivated by going to their Instagram page. Again, Cummins Lifestyle, all one word. Don't have to buy anything. Just stay in tune with what's going on with the Own and Unplugged tour. They'll show you all the cool things you can do in your recreational time when you use Cummins Own and products. Give them a follow. Jeff Cameron, Tom Lang joining me today here on the show. Both of them from the Jeff Cameron Show, 1 to 4 p.m. most weekdays. I say most weekdays because Tuesday's headlines. It's not like Jeff and Tom are taking the day off. They're always out there grinding for you folks, so we appreciate them being here. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe. I'd say rate and review, but it's on some podcast feed, so rate and review that one, the Seminole Headlines one. Don't forget, if you want to hang out with these gentlemen on your screen on Saturday, you can do so. There'll be a meet and greet over at Hotel Indigo, and you also can see them on the pregame show at 9 a.m. sharp, getting you ready for Florida State taking on Clemson. It's going to be a good one. Also, meet and greet 5 p.m. Friday, Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, Jeff Cameron, Corey Clark. Tom's usually up in the house, right? You'll be there probably the CP, right?
Why not? It's a Friday of Clemson week. There'll be a little bit of energy. Might be a lot of maybe some negative energy, but we can fix that all together at the Corner Pocket. We can fix that.
All right, don't want to put you on the spot there, Tom, but you're a good sport. And don't forget, Tom and Gene got you covered 10 to 15 minutes after the completion of the game with the post-game show brought to you by T-Spark. So we got you covered every single way. Who else does it like warchant.com does it? All right, let's get things started here. Florida State taking on number 15, Clemson. Last time I saw, 13.5, Jeff? Can you confirm, deny the line?
I've seen it 14.5, 14, 13.5, 15, down to 14.5, then 14, 14.5 as of this morning.
Well, it's because all this quarterback stuff, right? The quarterback situation in flux, so the line is moving. Yeah. DJ Uiagalelei ruled out for the week, injury to his pinky on his throwing hand. Brock Glenn, we assume, has not been announced as the starter, but he spoke to the media after practice on Wednesday, and I can't say anything else. I don't want to give up my privilege of being able to watch practice, but I think we've all been able to kind of connect some dots. So I'll start here with you, Jeff Cameron. What are some realistic expectations for Brock Glenn against a team like Clemson? Can Mike dial down his aggressive tendencies and call a conservative approach? How would you manage Brock Glenn? How do you hope Mike Norvell manages Brock Glenn against Clemson?
Well, I would take advantage of his mobility, and I'd let it fly, man. You got nothing to lose here. Your season is shot. Clemson is a vastly superior team to you. The defensive line is the best in the conference. Your offensive line is arguably the worst in the conference. So I'm going to move Brock Glenn off a platform. I'm going to get him outside the tackles. I'm going to roll him out and give him some run-pass options. He's never going to be in the same spot over and over and over again twice in a row. I would try, I suppose, to establish some sort of running game. Don't know that they'll be able to do that at all, but it's worth giving it a shot. They've done it once before when we didn't think they could, so we'll see. But for me, you got nothing to lose. Listen, Brock Glenn, this is the first time that he's ever actually had a full week to prepare for a start as quarterback. The first time he got thrown to the Wolves was, a few hours before the game in Charlotte against Louisville, when they still thought that they were going to have Rodemaker start that game, and then they found out the day of that he couldn't, so I felt bad for him there. Obviously, he got put into the game against Georgia where you had all the opt-outs, really not fair. So I imagine Brock's got to feel pretty good to have a whole week to prepare as the number one, mentally and physically to prepare in that way. But I would take advantage of his mobility. This is a kid who's not afraid to run. We know that, and will certainly take advantage of the read option if he gets the opportunity. So this could kickstart your offense a little bit. Fewer negative plays on first down because of his legs. But I would tell him he has nothing to lose. Let's go have some fun. He talked about having fun this week at practice in the post-practice media. I hope he means it because, honestly, you couldn't get much in the way of lower expectations than what Florida State has right now going against this Clemson team who is a front runner to win the ACC.
Yeah, and Brock's got eagerness teaming when it comes to just how excited he is for this opportunity. So I ask you kind of the same thing then, Tom, just quarterback can change everything. Is it realistic to think that Brock can make a significant impact on Florida State's fortunes, at least for this week, and how do you hope he's managed on Saturday against the Tigers?
Well, what I'll say is I'm looking at the energy level of the other 10 around him. That's something that you can see, whether it's the college game or the professional game. You'll see differences when a different quarterback comes in. It could be a backup situation. It could be a young rookie in the NFL finally gets his chance. But sometimes there's a different energy from the other 10 around him, a willingness to be more explosive, to be more physical. These are the things that I'm looking for on Saturday, first quarter. I do want to see how the guys play around him, play in front of him, because when you know that you've got a guy who can bail if there's trouble inside the pocket, and there's going to be trouble inside the pocket for Florida State trying to block up the Clemson attack, if you know that he actually has a fighting chance to break the pocket and make a play downfield, I think you run harder as a receiver. I think your scramble drill is something that you pay more attention to, whereas the play was dead and buried with the previous quarterback. It's not in this situation. Then also the management of Brock Glenn. If you take a look at Stanford's game against Clemson, you saw Stanford break out some of the speed option. They broke out quarterback runs against Clemson and at times tripped up the Tigers. So there's some things you can do with the quarterback's legs in terms of the game plan that obviously you were unable to do with DJ Uiagalelei. And the other thing I'd say too is the RPO game. Some of those RPO games include a quarterback run element, a read option element into the RPO. Defense has never had to account for that before. Mike Norvell would be wise to force them to account for it by having Brock use his legs early in the game. So these are the things I'm looking for. But number one would be that energy factor to see if the guys might have a little bit more intensity to them around Brock.
So this game they've got a bye week, Friday night game against Duke. People have been talking about at what point do you kind of go to a youth movement, if you will, Jeff? Well, Brock might be the first part of that. Sounds like offensive line is going to have a bit of a shakeup. Richie Leonard out for the season. KJ Jones got hurt during that SMU game. We heard LaWayne McCoy's name mentioned after practice on Wednesday. Charles Lester on the defensive side Wednesday. How excited are you to see some of these new pieces? What sort of life do you think they can bring into the program?
Yeah, how could you not be, right? I mean, I think every Florida State fan right now has kind of written this season off, and for good reason. The play has been so poor. All you have is the future to look forward to, is to say, what can we do to see this end? Well, it's going to have to be the youth, right? Obviously, the veterans have carried you to a place now where you feel bereft of hope. These young guys do have talent. We've watched a lot of this. They don't have experience. They're going to make mistakes. I think you go into games knowing that. But if I'm Mike Norvell, I really got to know what I have when I go into this offseason, because it's going to be an offseason of change. I'm going to be looking at my roster. I'm going to be looking also at my coaching staff. I'm going to be looking at myself as to what I did wrong to get to this point. So why not let it all hang out and see what these young, talented players can do at a lot of spots? I'm not saying you don't have veteran players in certain spots on the field that have earned it, that are playing well for you to help usher in some of the young guys and teach them the ropes. But I do think the more you can infuse this young talent on the roster, the more, A, the experience they get, and B, the fans follow in and kind of get excited about what the possibilities are for next year. Right now, you felt sort of empty going to these Florida State games. If you were going to roll DJ back out there with the product that we've seen, and some of this offensive line stuff has been awful too, the sooner they can get some of these young guys in, that might be your future as well. I would do it. I want to see youth everywhere, and I want to do it knowing, as a fan, let's say, that there are going to be mistakes made, mistakes of inexperience, mistakes of youthful exuberance, whatever it might be, but they'll be made at full speed. And these are all tryouts right now. You can position this for the players as, hey, look, man, I'm watching closely to see who we're moving forward with. Who do I have to recruit over? Who might I hit the portal for to go over? Or are you going to earn a spot right now? Play like your hair's on fire. Let's go out there and have some fun.
Yeah. Tom, good opportunity, obviously, for these young guys to get some reps and show what they're all about. Also, maybe good opportunity for the staff to show that they've evaluated players correctly and developed some of them properly if they're able to go out there and make an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Across the board. The other part of this is the transfer portal doesn't just work on the import side. It works on the export side too. And some kids might want to bail out of this particular situation. This is the time and place that we are in college football history. If you have good players that you don't want to lose, the way to keep them is to play them now. Is to play them in situations like this. You are less likely to lose those players in those situations. And for the coaching staff as well, this is a chance. If Andre Otto's pretty good and Jalen Early, I know his Pro Football Focus numbers are solid. Let's just say that you've got those two pieces by the end of the season. Maybe Lucas Simmons is in that rotation somewhere, or an Armella, somebody like that, and their numbers aren't too bad. The conversation does change a little bit as it pertains to the offensive line. You can apply that logic to receiver. You can apply that logic to tight end if Landon Thomas builds on the performance last week where he had his first touchdown in a college football game. What if he becomes a player for you by season's end? Well, you've got to give them reps to get them to a place where not only the fan base would be more engaged if you usher in the youth movement, but that locker room would be more engaged as well. Because if you're thinking about 2025 and beyond, and how could you not be at this point, you have to have those solutions for the future be engaged in the now to get you there. And the best way to do that is to give them reps. And yes, Aslan, absolutely. When you're talking about coaches being able to prove that maybe they evaluated some guys right on the trail, again, the only way to communicate that to the fan base is through the playing on the field of these players.
At one point, this conference used to go through Tallahassee. For the better part of the last 10 years, it's gone through Clemson, save last year. The Tigers coming to this one quite hot, looking very sharp on both sides of the ball, mostly on the offense. We'll see how it all matches up and breaks down right after this on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Your favorite football team doesn't stop pushing its limits on the climb to the top, and neither does a global power technology leader like Cummins. Cummins has released its new QG4000i generator and is taking it across the country to show America that whether it's turbo diesel engines or taking it easy in your RV, life is a little bit better with a touch of the Cummins lifestyle. The Own and Unplugged tour is crisscrossing the country, including a stop in South Bend, Indiana, home of Notre Dame, when the Fighting Irish host Florida State on November 9th. FSU will play like a champion. You come by and tailgate like one. Follow Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram for updates, and don't forget to get involved every week in generating discussion on Wake Up Warchant for your opportunity to win free Cummins swag and a chance at a portable generator or power station. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow. Welcome back in. Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Why don't you give them a follow over on their Instagram page, Cummins Lifestyle, all one word. Florida State alum behind this entire partnership that we've got going on. Sure would appreciate if you go ahead and give them a follow. Check out all the cool things they're doing with their products over on their Instagram page. All right, part of the show where we try to get behind enemy lines, get a good peek at the Clemson Tigers. They obviously got railroaded in their first game against Georgia, but have bounced back quite nicely. Just how legit are they coming into this contest? Our Matt LaSerre sought to find out.
So we are here with Grayson Mann for Clemson Week. Grayson Mann from TigersNet.com. We'll get right into it with Cade Klubnik, obviously the guy who not really replaced, but took over for DJ Hughes now at Florida State. Not playing this week, but that's how it all went. He seems to have been really improved this year so far. What have you seen there?
Right, and even after the Georgia game, there were some positives that you could potentially take away from it, and certainly the team believed it as well. What really feels like a complete 180, I think the biggest thing for me is he's more poised in the pocket, a little bit more precise with his decision-making, and then the plays with his legs. He's really been able to extend plays, whether it's on third and longs and finding Antonio Williams, Jake Brenningstool, or it's just simply going out there and rushing for himself. He did that against NC State, and then he did it on Saturday night against Stanford to open up drives. It's really been an interesting thing to watch his development and just the confidence that comes with it.
Awesome. And then getting into, we'll just say the weapons in general, Phil Maffa's back, and then obviously the receivers have looked fairly good up to this point. Where do you expect Clemson to kind of attack Florida State, and what are some names we should watch there?
Yeah, I think obviously when you look at Clemson's offense, the freshman receivers are pretty much standing out alongside the veterans that at least FSU fans will be familiar with from last year's matchup. But talking about Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore, guys that are really starting to come along on the scene, there was plenty said about them in the fall that Clemson fans were waiting for that added arsenal that maybe the championship teams of the past had, the Mike Williams, the Sammy Watkins. We can go on and on about those, but Wesco and Moore feel like a relic of the past that can really separate and keep defensive coordinators up at night. I think for at least me personally, Clemson's got to attack Florida State on the run. Phil Maffa has been fantastic to start the year. A lot of big plays coming out of the backfield. They struggled a bit against Stanford, but they were able to find their footing as the game progressed. I think especially on the road against a team that really has nothing to lose, taking them out of it early is going to be key.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. And as we kind of flip sides over to the defense, this front seven is always something that everyone talks about, right? When it comes to Clemson, you always look at that front seven and you know they're going to be good. What have you seen?
I've seen a rotation so far just because we've had Peter Woods out with a lower body injury that happened against Appalachian State. Certainly he and TJ Parker are standouts on that front seven. We were concerned, I think, from our staff, at least at TigerNet, when we listed out, okay, where does this roster have a potential hole? I think depth at the defensive end has been something that we've been watching for Clemson, and you've seen guys like Jaheim Lawson and Cade Denhoff, who I do think will play on Saturday. Peter Wood's status is still up in the air, but I think if he plays, he's certainly one that's going to stand out against the Seminoles. But I think Barrett Carter and Sammy Brown, a linebacking duo along with Wade Woodaz, have really come along as the season has progressed. Barrett Carter had a season high 10 tackles against Stanford. 3.5 of those were for loss, and obviously had the sack to go with it. They're starting to find their groove defensively, pairing with an offense that's really confident right now.
Let's go into that secondary. What have we been seeing recently? You got Terrell as an interception. They've been fairly decent, but again, Georgia's your only blip. That's not a bad blip. So what else have you seen?
Terrell's always been a more shorter player, so he's got to use the lower body frame to really match the gravity of some of these more taller stature players, but he's been a solid cornerback one for Clemson so far. And then Jaden Lucas, the athletic corner that missed a lot of time last year with injury, has really been able to be a solid contributor. But you may see players like Khalil Barnes have an impact. He hasn't had the best season with just what my eyes are showing me. I know Sweeney said on Sunday that Khalil's been grading high, but I guess we see it differently on that one. But I think there's a lot of positives from this Clemson secondary. They're creating turnovers, they're opportunistic, and something where in 2023 we saw it in the FSU matchup last year where turnovers ended up deciding a really close ball game. Turnovers have been the key to keeping opponents in check for Clemson this year, and it's a sign of the growth that we didn't really see in 2023, one of the wackier seasons in Dabo Sweeney's tenure.
Awesome, man, and that's kind of all we have here for getting into the matchup, getting to know Clemson. Again, this is Grayson Mann from TigerNet.com. Enjoy the game, Grayson. I think you're going to be on the happier side of it.
We'll see, man. We'll see.
All right. Thanks to Matt for doing that for us. All right. Let's get our thoughts on it. We'll start off with you, Tom. The Clemson defense, statistically, in terms of like standard defensive statistics, doesn't look all that impressive. But I think some of that might be chalked up to Clemson getting ahead on some opponents and then taking the foot off the gas. Is there much more bite to this Clemson team than the bark and the way these stats show things out?
Well, there certainly is relative to the competition Florida State has seen through 5 games. And I think that's got to be the scary deal here, is that Florida State hasn't exactly lit the world on fire. You celebrate when they score 17 points in the first 5 games this season. And what Clemson brings to the table is something that's much more physical with much more speed. I'll grant you, Aslan, again, watching the Stanford game last week, the Cardinal turned the ball over twice in the red zone. An interception in the end zone, and then an interception on the 20-yard line that changed the course of that game. This is before garbage time again. So this 20-7 football game might have been 20-17, and then all of a sudden the nation is starting to turn their attention over to Clemson, South Carolina, saying, what's going on there? That's a West Coast team playing tit for tat with Clemson. So there are mitigating circumstances here, but the problem with most of these discussions that we have is that Florida State's offense simply isn't good against Georgia Tech, against Memphis, a team that gave up 50, 60 points the next week to a service academy. So that's the concern here. A player specifically that gives me nightmares is TJ Parker, defensive end, edge rusher. He's got a body type that is very similar to the body type that Darius Washington had a hard time with against Boston College. 6'3", 265-pound defensive end who leads the team in tackles for loss. He had a strip sack against NC State as they were starting to run that score up on the Wolfpack in the first half. That's a player that's scary. They're linebackers. Obviously, Barrett Carter is a guy that Mike Norvell mentioned this week, but Sammy Brown can play as well. They trigger downhill. They play with a lot of ferocity and physicality. I think there are some things that Florida State can do specifically against the safeties and the linebackers and maybe have some success in the RPO game. But they've got to be a whole hell of a lot better than they've been through the first 5 games of the season. So, like, there are things, Aslan, that you'd like to talk about is maybe this is what Florida State could take advantage of. But the offense has just been so anemic, you can't count on any of that. That's where it gets difficult to discuss this thing. But there's no doubt that Clemson is the best defense Florida State has seen on their schedule so far.
Clemson's offense carrying the day for them, averaging 42 points per game, top 15 in the country, Jeff. That quarterback, the verdict kind of came in on him a little bit early. It felt like, Dabo put all of his chips in that basket and all of his eggs in that basket and kind of come up, with nothing good. Wrong. This kid's developed quite nicely in the second season under Garrett Riley. Is his legs the thing that you think will keep Adam Fuller up at night, or is those downfield shots he seems to be connecting on quite regularly this season?
Yeah, he's not afraid, right? He will continue to throw the ball down the field. He's got good receivers to do it with. TJ Moore, Tyler Brown, Cole Turner, Adam Randall, the list goes on. They're all guys capable of making plays. He isn't that discerning. He's just very aggressive. He will continue, even after mistakes are made, to throw the ball down the field. He hasn't made too many mistakes. I think it's a 12-2 touchdown to interception ratio, averaging when he does run over 6 yards per carry. He's completing now, I think last I saw, 66% of his passes. The light bulb went off. Somewhere along the way, they figured out something that he does well that infused confidence with him. Now he's doing most things well. Obviously, it doesn't hurt to have a running back like Phil Maffa behind you, who's a battering ram and a guy that you can turn to consistently give you support and put you in 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, because he is so tough to get to the ground. I do think that the rest of the league, and that includes obviously Florida State come Saturday night, have a problem on their hands with an emerging Cade Klubnik who is confident and now has the support, I think, of his teammates, because he runs with reckless abandon. You know, when you watch him run, he runs with speed. He's not indecisive. He's not afraid to get hit. He's almost overly aggressive in that sense. But the players, obviously, when you're scoring a bunch of points, they love you, but they love you when you are unbashful, unafraid, and really involved in the same way that the other offensive players are in terms of putting your body on the line. And he will absolutely do that. He's more athletic than I think we thought he was, because in the past, we saw a guy who looked like he was thinking too much. And then, in turn, he was a little bit more hesitant. No, Cade Klubnik's a problem right now. This Clemson offense is an emerging problem. I will say, much like Tom did with the other side of the ball, you can look at some mitigating factors that suggest this offense for now might be a little overrated. Maybe. We don't know. The teams that they have faced, not named Georgia, are not very good defensively. And so this NC State team is really bad. We thought that was going to be a tough test for them. It was not. It was over 10 minutes into the game. From there, it was kind of a snooze fest that Clemson could do anything they wanted. Stanford's not elite on defense, obviously. And Appalachian State, bless their hearts, are a mess. And so they did anything they wanted against them as well. So that's inflated some of the numbers. I think that people have it in their head. They saw that game against Georgia. Well, I mean, other than Alabama, Georgia does that to every other team in America when they face them. So I'm not going to judge Cade Klubnik's struggles against that Georgia team. He's been really good in every quarter since that game ended. I think Florida State's got their hands full, that's for sure.
One last thing before we go to our break and then do our picks, and stick with you on this one, Jeff, and then we'll go to Tom. Just, you know, Dabo ruled this conference for such a long time. Mike caught his attention and then caught up to him and earned his respect, I think, what he did last season. But, 4 weeks ago, Dabo was a punchline once again. He's not using the portal. Look at him. The game's passed him by. He's got no shot. And as we sit here in October, you might have the inside track on win this conference again. Florida State, meanwhile, staring at possibly being 1-5. Just how much joy do you think Dabo might relish in if he can take it to Florida State on Saturday? Do you think there's any kind of ulterior motive, added motivation for him in Clemson on Saturday night?
I think he legitimately respects and likes Mike. I'm sure he's confused about what's happened here. I think he's got to be looking in Tallahassee, much like the rest of the country, wondering what gives. But I will also say this. If I am an annual contender to win this conference or be an elite team in the Southeast in general, right, this footprint, if I have an opportunity to run up against the score against any of those teams that are going to be my chief rivals on the recruiting trail, I'm going to do it without fail. I would try to beat people half to death. If I could score 80, I would score 80, and it might not be malice induced. It's simply put, I've got to out-recruit Florida State. They're down right now out of nowhere. They just beat me a year ago. I'm reaffirming my place atop this conference. I'll take care of Miami down the line when I get my opportunity. But yeah, I think they'll do everything in their power to score as many points as possible. But I don't think it's a grudge-related thing. I think it's an opportunity. And I would do the same if I were Mike Norvell in Florida State and they were in that position to bludgeon teams that are going to be their chief rivals in recruiting. I would do the same thing. So I just think that's part and parcel of the business. You look around, you find out which programs have real cachet, who, when they do get it turned around, are capable of doing damage on the recruiting trail. I'm going to try to beat those teams with a little extra what for when I get the opportunities to do so.
Tom, Dabo says he doesn't read anything, but he likes to quote everybody seemingly when he brings that sort of stuff up. So do you think he's well aware of the narrative around his program being stodgy and old-fashioned and out of touch, and Florida State being on the cutting edge of using the portal, and might want to show them that his way might be the better way after all?
sometimes the things he says, I wonder if he does read, but I think that's because he does the old "aw shucks" deal. He plays it to the hilt. The thing I would say, Aslan, is to your point, he learned a thing or two from the old ball coach when South Carolina was beating up on Clemson, and Clemson was a punchline for years and years. And the constant digs would come his way from Spurrier. And all Dabo could do was kind of laugh it off in those moments and just kind of play to it as best he could. Was never a great look, but who's laughing now? 10, 15 years later, obviously Clemson became what it did, which is superior to anything that Steve Spurrier did at South Carolina. So I do think in the post game or next Monday, if he has a chance to work that in, it's not necessarily about Florida State. It's what Florida State represents, which is the ultimate portal program. I think he would use that opportunity to, put on a pedestal his methodology and his process. But I think that the larger conversation for him comes down the line here when they get, larger tests and maybe another program that was a hybrid approach like a Georgia or an Ohio State in a playoff that used the portal to their advantage. Maybe you revisit that conversation. But for now, you put to bed any illusions that Florida State is on your level if you're Clemson. And I think you would message that way too in the press and the post game and obviously coming out of the game on Monday if they get the result that many expect.
All right, what do we think the result's going to be? That's the next part of the show. It's your favorite part. Staff picks, panel picks. It's all coming up next on the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Your favorite football team doesn't stop pushing its limits on the climb to the top, and neither does a global power technology leader like Cummins. Cummins has released its new QG4000i generator and is taking it across the country to show America that whether it's turbo diesel engines or taking it easy in your RV, life is a little bit better with a touch of the Cummins lifestyle. The Own and Unplugged tour is crisscrossing the country, including a stop in South Bend, Indiana, home of Notre Dame, when the Fighting Irish host Florida State on November 9th. FSU will play like a champion. You come by and tailgate like one. Follow Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram for updates, and don't forget to get involved every week in generating discussion on Wake Up Warchant for your opportunity to win free Cummins swag and a chance at a portable generator or power station. Cummins Lifestyle on Instagram. Give it a follow. Welcome back. Final segment, Warchant Report, powered by Cummins. Give them a follow. Once again, I ask you kindly, please go to their Instagram. Cummins Lifestyle is all one word. Check out the latest and greatest things they're doing with their own products and their RV that's crisscrossing, circumnavigating this great country of ours. They'll be in South Bend, Indiana, November 9th. Won't you join them? Join us. Give them a follow on Instagram, Cummins Lifestyle, all one word. Friday night, meet and greet, Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 5 p.m. So I shouldn't say Friday night, Friday evening, I guess. 5 p.m., meet and greet, Jeff Cameron. Tom Lang's going to be there now. He's on the hook, everybody, as well as with Corey Clark. And then pregame show Saturday, 9 a.m. sharp. Tune in for that one. Jeff and Tom will get you ready for Clemson and Florida State. There'll also be a meet and greet at Hotel Indigo on game day. Following the game, post-game show, Gene Williams, Tom Lang. It's remarkable all the stuff we do. I don't want to gas us up too much. It's not very becoming to brag on yourself so much, but I don't know who else covers a team like we cover a team. Hopefully they'll match our level of excellence sooner than later when it comes to on-field production. For that, though, we're going to make our picks. But first, the rest of the staff over at warchant.com gives us their thoughts on the matchup between Florida State and Clemson with their predictions.
Man, I can't sugarcoat this. I'm not very excited about what's going to happen in this one. It will be Brock Glenn's debut. I think a lot of excitement to the offense, but I don't think it's going to be nearly enough. I think Dabo and company are going to come in here and roll, and Florida State's going to move to 1-5, and there's going to be more questions about the future of this program going forward. So I've got Florida State 13, Clemson 42. Ouch. Sorry. Had to do it.
When the lines came out early this week and Florida State was only a 2-touchdown underdog to Clemson, I think a lot of FSU fans were just blown away. They couldn't believe that Vegas thought that much of Florida State. I don't think it's that. I think that there's some doubt about what Clemson really is. They started the year, they got boat raced by Georgia. They've come back, they've had some convincing wins, but against inferior competition. NC State, that game just went sideways. Stanford's not clearly on Clemson's level, and all those games have been at home. Appalachian State as well. All those games were at home, where Cade Klubnik's clearly feeling good about himself, and the offense is feeling good. You come into Tallahassee, that could affect their offense some. I think Florida State's defense has shown some improvement, some effort, some intensity in the last few games. the end of the SMU game notwithstanding. But I think the defense overall has been trending in the right direction. If they play well at home, you'd like to think that they can keep Clemson's offense in check a little bit. And then, we'll see what the offense looks like with Brock Glenn. I don't know that he's going to, shock anybody with his passing or the passing game that this team has with these receivers and this pass protection. But I also don't think this is an all-time great Clemson defense. So you should be able to string together some drives. Mike Norvell should be able to help him out, use his legs, mobility to kind of move the chains a little bit, get some momentum on offense. I don't think Florida State's going to get blown out in this game unless they just quit. And that's on the board. That's a possibility. But if Florida State doesn't quit, I think they're going to hang in this game. I still think Clemson's going to win, though. I just think they have too much firepower on both sides of the ball. So I'll take Clemson to win this game in Doak Campbell Stadium, 31-20.
I mean, let's be honest. It's probably not going to be pretty, right? We all know that. Hey, I'm Corey Clark, sports fans. Tasked with giving you a prediction for the Florida State-Clemson game in 2024. And I'm going to say Clemson's going to win the game. I do think Florida State will play hard. I think they can keep it close for a while. I just don't expect the offense to be able to garner much at all. And probably by the middle of the third quarter won't be able to keep it competitive. I could see it playing out, honestly, ironically, a lot like the Georgia-Clemson game where Clemson was in it for a while and then just the offense couldn't do anything and the defense finally kind of gave in. So I kind of can see that happening. And I'm going to say I foresee Clemson 33, Florida State 13. But hey, get to 13. That's something. That's almost your average, and it's against the best defense you faced. And I hope the Noles prove me wrong. I hope it's a close game, and I hope they win the darn thing.
Call me crazy, but I think the Noles actually have a good chance to cover this week. I don't think this Clemson front seven is as good as everyone says it is, especially if Robert Wood is not playing. Statistically, it's kind of overrated. You look at it, it's just the rush defense is actually worse than Florida State's at 104th in the country, I believe. So using that, I think Florida State can finally run the ball this week. If this is the week for the offensive line, it has to be the week, and you can cover this game, maybe even win, but I'm not going to go that far. I'll go with the cover. I got Clemson 24, Florida State 10.
All right. See what they're putting down, and we have to pick up. So let's see if we can generate some more positive momentum here, gentlemen. Florida State taking on Clemson, 7 p.m. ESPN. Clemson comes into this game ranked 15th in the country. I start with you, Tom Lang. Give us your prediction for Florida State and Clemson. Can Brock, can he, we will Brock you? Can you help us out?
I don't know. I was putting in the Slack this week, the Brock and awe when Florida State gets into the upper 20s, lower 30s. No, I'm not doing that again, folks. I know I've been the optimist on staff. I tried to will it through for SMU, 14.5. I thought maybe we're onto something here. We were not onto anything. And so it's unfortunate. I do believe that Florida State's defensive line can cause Clemson's offensive line some issues. I think they'll be in the fight early, but I think this follows a similar pattern. At halftime, you might be saying to yourself, okay, you're kind of in it. And then it's just the spirit is broken by the end of the game. So I don't have it as a huge number. I have it closer to the Vegas number in terms of the spread. Clemson 31-14. Clemson 31-14 is my final. I will say this, though. The Hotel Indigo meet and greet confirmed 4 o'clock. There might be a special guest. Who could it be? I don't even know. But 4 o'clock at Hotel Indigo on Saturday. We'll talk about it then.
I like it. This man's worked in the entertainment industry for a minute or two. Good tease. Way to tee it up. How about you, Jeff? As I was listening to Tom talk, I'm recalculating my thoughts. Help me figure out what I'm going to do when you give us your pick.
Yeah, I hate doing this because I mean, 2 weeks ago, I don't hate making picks, but I hate what I'm about to do. 2 weeks ago, I was thinking about this game when I was watching this dreadful product and I was beginning to see all the ways in which this has been a failure and what's not getting better and the areas of concern growing because of injury along the offensive front, et cetera. And how Clemson at the same time was getting better and stronger and looking more confident. I just don't really see a path. I think Brock Glenn gives you a shot in the arm. Maybe you see a little bit more efficient offense run. Perhaps you're able to sustain some drives a little bit more because of his legs. But at the end of the day, I think this defense, like Tom said, gets worn down. I'll be honest with you. I think it's pretty ugly. I'm going to take Clemson 45, Florida State 16.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say like 45-10, but then, Tom, I'm like, all right, maybe it'll be like a 30s to teens contest, but I'll stick with my first gun. I'll go 44-14. I was going to throw like 13 or 17 there, but I just don't know if Mike's going to ever take a field goal. I just feel like if they're ever in range, he's going to keep going for it and trying to get a touchdown. So we'll see if the offense can do that, or maybe it'll be some special team stuff that factors in and gets them on the board. But let's just get into this bye week. And I will say this, watching them practice on Tuesday, it felt really bleak, boys. It felt really, really bleak. But then the way it came out on Wednesday was encouraging, man. They took a little bit of a step forward, a baby step. If Corey Clark was on the show, he would say. So I just kind of hope that we'll just see that out of Brock the entire season. If he can just get just a little bitty better every single week, and then maybe got something to work with in 2025.
So to peek behind the curtain really quickly, that's funny, Aslan, because Tuesday, Wednesdays, I'm behind at the house, and I'm putting the interviews up. You post them, and then I kind of distribute them. So I play Mike Norvell's interview just to listen to it because it's my first exposure to it. The first 3 words he said, the tone of his voice he used, I went, oh, God, like how bad was it? How bad was it today? I'm glad to hear that there was at least a small hopeful note on Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, on Tuesday, he always says, like, I thought it was a good work day. Like Tuesday, he did not say, I thought it was a good work day. But on Wednesday, he did come back with it. Bonus content on the way out. Jeff and then you, Tom. UCF, Florida. I mean, we're rooting like hell for UCF in this one, right? Can UCF put the dagger in Billy Napier? Is that premature prediction?
Gus Malzahn's not a good football coach, and they are failures at UCF currently. They got blown out by Dion. That's the first big, real good performance from Colorado on the road. I think what was especially ugly for UCF was that they couldn't stop the run of Colorado. Everybody else has when they needed to. So I was shocked to see that UCF was favored over Florida. I think Florida stinks, but I think UCF might stink too. Give me the Gators.
Oh, what about you, Tom?
Well, we know this very well, everybody, as Florida State fans this season and from a few years ago as well. You just want that game to be a total tire fire both ways. Like, so even if Florida wins, they don't feel better about it. Like 16-14, there's your final. Don't know who wins. Both teams feel awful walking out of the stadium. That's my pick.
All right. I like it. All right. Again, a reminder, meet and greet Friday, 5:00 over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. There'll be a pregame show, 9 a.m. on Saturday. Meet and greet at Hotel Indigo, confirmed, 4 p.m. And then the postgame show with Gene Williams and Tom Lang going down 10 to 15 minutes after the game. Before then, after then, Warchant.com's got you covered. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe. FSU 1 is still going. FSU 1 gets you 2 months for $1, or subscribe to our YouTube page. That won't cost you a single cent. Either does following Cummins over on their Instagram page, Cummins Lifestyle. For our entire staff and for Jeff Cameron and Tom Lang, I'm Aslan Hajavani. Thanks so much for watching this edition of the Warchant Report, powered by Cummins.